You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
WCYTV.
Here on the Daily Signal.
Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. I will get to some of the big breaking updates out of Iran, a very large game changer for sure with regard to the Middle East. First, I have to address a story that just broke a little bit ago, or should I say, the coverage from earlier this afternoon just reached my attention from ABC 7 in California. A state judge has ruled from the Alameda County Superior Court that more than 20,000 illegal immigrant truck drivers are required to be able to keep their commercial driver's licenses in California. Now, according to the article, it says at least temporarily. It says the decision puts the state of California in a bind because, as you will recall, after far too many semi and large-scale transportation commercial scale accidents resulting in the loss of American lives, the damage in roads, property, crippling individuals, killing individuals due to people who cannot speak English, who do not follow the rules of the road, who have minimal training, often working for shell companies which are sheltered in places like California and Pennsylvania and other transportation hubs, including, by the way, some of those in my home state of Indiana, I'm chagrined to say. The Department of Transportation, Secretary Sean Duffy's office, pushed the California Department of Motor Vehicles to rescind these licenses, which ABC 7 says many belong to asylum seekers and other immigrants with temporary legal status. No. Now, here's the weird place. This particular judge, which ABC 7 refused to name because ABC 7 does not want you to know the name of this judge, Karen Schwartz, who, by the way, looks like this. In case you're on the radio or listening to the podcast and you don't know what I'm describing, picture any basic middle-aged left-wing white lady dressing up like she's in the Saturday Night Live Night at the Roxbury sketch. So she's got like the oversized blazer, the chain. All we're missing is Hathaway and, you know, the what is love and the head bouncing. So she ruled right after, by the way, a federal judge tossed out a lawsuit in California. The Eastern District of California has just got done dismissing a case directed at the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. And essentially, the illegal immigrants were trying to sue the federal government. Jasvinder Paul Singh Sandhu, I'm not pronouncing that correctly, I don't care, a refugee and a truck driver, filed a civil complaint against the FMCSA saying it's discriminatory to ask those who don't speak English to keep them from getting commercial driver's licenses. Again, a little reminder, all of the signs in the United States that are on the state and federal highway transportation system of standards that is literally regulated down to the font that must be used. All of those are in English. Now, I don't have the clip ready to go, but we just got done with yet another driver of a semi in Missouri driving down the wrong side of the road. Again, of course, we're looking at traffic accidents resulting in the loss of American lives in California and Indiana in the last couple of weeks. Now, essentially a Superior Court judge in California has ordered that until the end of this week, when she'll issue a final decision, that the 20,000 truckers between now and Friday are allowed to keep driving, and also California has to give them licenses if they've applied for those to be renewed. So she's issuing a temporary ruling that is going to result in a bunch of driver's licenses being renewed past an expiration date, which is disgusting. So that's a story that disgusts me, that it just came to my attention. We'll get back to some of this later if we get additional updates. Now on to the big international news currently at the moment developing. The Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has issued a first ever of its kind designation. Quote, "Today I am designating Iran as a state sponsor of wrongful detention. When the Iranian regime seized power 47 years ago," keep in mind that 47 years ago, guys, that is going to be very relevant this evening. Ayatollah Khomeini consolidated his control of power by endorsing the hostage-taking of U.S. embassy staff. For decades, Iran has continued to cruelly detain innocent Americans, as well as the citizens of other nations, to use as political leverage against other states. This abhorrent practice must end. President Trump issued an executive order to protect U.S. nationals from wrongful detention abroad last fall, and then Congress subsequently enacted, otherwise codified, the Countering Wrongful Detention Act of 2025, authorizing the State Department to designate Iran as a state sponsor of wrongful detention. If Iran does not stop, we will be forced to consider additional measures, including a potential geographic travel restriction on the use of U.S. passports to, through, or from Iran. The Iranian regime must stop taking hostages and release all Americans unjustly detained in Iran. By the way, those of you who tell you that Iran's done nothing to the United States, I remind you there are American citizens who are currently in prison in Iran. No state on this planet has the right, with the American hegemony in power, in dominance, to hold an American citizen hostage. If we are going to elevate the status of the American citizen above all others, properly so, here in this country, then we must equally consider every American citizen around this globe to be just as important and worthy of the State Department and the Department of War and the Office of the President and the United States Congress attention. Now, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, I'm just going to level with you right now. I'm sorry. I know I'm going through the news. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a clue in. This is what they are going to tell the media from the administration when the United States strikes Iran. The idea that Iran has, in fact, committed several crimes against the United States, that this regime, which the attempted bargains time and time again, whether you're talking about the emasculated Obama administration and that horrible, horrible deal which said, you can do whatever you want and step on me and I'll give you money for it, or the Trump administration, which is, how about a midnight hammer right on your kneecaps? That particular style of negotiation is once again now coming to a close. Marco Rubio is not only incensed about the wrongful detention situation, but also on Iran's continual attempt not to develop civilian nuclear power, again, in a country which doesn't need it, but even after the Fordo and Isfahan strikes, to continue pursuing a nuclear development program.
President said,
well, let me put it to you this way. If in fact what you're interested in is a peaceful nuclear program, you can do it like most of the countries in the world do it, which is they have above ground reactors and they import the fuel. We have deals now to do that with countries. If what they really wanted was energy from, they could do small modular reactors, which is something that's quite affordable and achievable for a lot of countries. But when you say we want to enrich, and we want to enrich deep underground, and you have a history in the past of enriching to 20 and even 60%, plus you're building missiles that could potentially carry warheads, that doesn't sound to me like someone who's a country that's not interested in building weapons. So it's not just the rhetorical, it's the actions that back the rhetoric.
The actions that back the rhetoric. Now, again, I told you to remember that 47 years line. From the president today in Texas, he said the same thing. Now, want to make sure that the audio is coming through clearly here. I believe that it is. He's with Governor Abbott and several other officials discussing a myriad of issues, but of course the Iranian question is brought up.
Well, they should make a deal, but they don't want to quite go far enough, and it's too bad. Look, we've been playing with them for 47 years, and that's a long time. They've been blowing the legs off our people, blowing the face off our people, the arms. They've been knocking out ships one by one, but every month there's something else, so you can't put up with it too long. We're not happy with the negotiation. They just don't want to. They don't want to say the key words. We're not going to have a nuclear weapon.
Now there are some criticisms, I should say, from isolationists who have said, "Well, I thought he destroyed the nuclear program." Yes, yeah, in Isfahan and Fordo, the bunkers were destroyed. But Iran said, "Fine, we will continue pursuing this, and also we will attempt to buy a bunch of hypersonic missiles from China, alter them slightly, call them the Fateh 2, and then essentially aim them at U.S. shipping and the Middle Eastern partners of the United States, including Saudi Arabia, including Israel, including Jordan, including Lebanon." And that is an issue for the United States. The idea the United States needs some kind of special permission to air bomb the Iranian regime, which has, for, as Trump said again, 47 years, harassed and killed Americans, harassed our interests, the administration is quite clearly done with it. Again, this line of 47 years, enough is enough, is coming up. I believe that we are getting ready to see something a little more substantial. We're not hearing any more hopes of peaceful and friendly negotiations at this point. Radio crew, we got to send you over to the commercial. We're going to carry some more on this news, not to mention the evacuation orders and the situation developing in Pakistan and Cuba. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Now, over on the live stream side of things, because we don't do that whole long commercial break here, outside of the Gulf of Aden incident, Senator Cotton of Arkansas also making it clear the United States foreign policy and this idea of the United States tired of working with countries that for 30, 40, 50 years have been kowtowed to as they thwart the United States and believe they have a right to do so.
Well, you shouldn't, Sean. I don't either. I don't know who was calling significant progress from that meeting this morning. It sounds like it may have been the Iranians. Remember, they believed for 47 years that they can't win a war, but they can win any negotiation. I think with Donald Trump, they're likely to lose both. As you said, they're refusing to stop enriching uranium. That was a central demand of the president going back 10 years. And as Marco Rubio very critically pointed out, this is not just about their nuclear program. They have thousands of ballistic missiles that threaten our bases in the Middle East, in Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean. Some of them can even range our bases in Europe.
Now, by the way, you are seeing what appears to be a last-ditch online burst of effort. There are several independent watchdog agencies that have reported the maximum amount of internet traffic that is currently surging out of key points in Iran. Essentially meaning this: Iran and China are trying desperately to push all of the bots, I'm sure you can probably see them on social media right now, who are suggesting that this is all some secret Jewish-Israeli plot. They're at the end of the rope and they know it. They do. China has been wrested any control from its Central and South American ambitions. It is currently losing control in Africa. Iran has lost control of the majority of its institutions in the Middle East, and they are resorting to former conservative commentators laughing maniacally and buying houses in Qatar to go to bat for them. And it ain't working. There's nothing left for them to hide behind. So what are they doing? They're pumping out the bot traffic, and they're also pumping out weird AI videos. So from Iran today, videos like apparently some kind of American B-2 bomber that they are, I guess, trying to claim is rolling out of a tunnel, only the wings are clipping into the tunnel. The B-2 Spirit bomber, that's not an X-wing, all right? You don't have to lock the S-foils in attack positions. The wings are fixed, bud. Here you can see it warps out of the rock and then immediately flies and turns right. Yeah, okay. All right, great. That's real special. So I sure hope that's going to do it for you, I suppose. Now, there is one other side of this that is rather humorous. A couple of diplomatic sources, one American and one British, told the Times that if the situation in the Middle East escalated, then the United States would be prepared to use the Diego Garcia Island base, which is, if you kind of go equidistant from like the Arabian Peninsula and India, and then go south a good 2,000 miles, there's this tiny island owned by the United Kingdom called Diego Garcia. It's an air base. Keir Starmer and the British government had, over the last week, said that Trump wasn't allowed, the Americans were not allowed to use Diego Garcia. And according to two diplomatic sources to the Times, one American, one British, the United States is just going to use Diego Garcia as a launch pad for its B-2 bombers, with or without UK approval. Now, personally, that makes me cackle endlessly. And the spirit of Thomas Jefferson smiles in quite joyous pleasure, because the idea that the British are going to withhold an operational base in the Indian Ocean that the United States is providing hefty resources to is truly laughable. That brings us over to the evacuation orders. 24 nations have now issued evacuation orders for their citizens, including, of course, the US and the UK. China urged all citizens to flee Iran and surrounding countries today. Canada, India, Germany, Poland, Sweden, Finland, Serbia, Brazil, Australia, South Korea, Italy, Cyprus, which is kind of funny, and then Singapore. We got to bring the radio crew back from commercial. A lot of news to cover tonight. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. Good to have you back. We've got a lot to cover and not a lot of time to do it. Ilhan Omar is deeply upset that the United States may be about to strike Iran and has posted, Iraq was attacked by the U.S. during Ramadan, and it is sickening to know that the U.S. is again going to attack Iran during Ramadan. The U.S. apparently loves to strike Muslim countries during Ramadan, and I am convinced it isn't what these countries have done to violate international law, but about who they worship. I love seeing stupid posts like this from Representative Ilhan Omar. I love this. First of all, of the last 250 Muslim terror attacks or religious invasions, 241 of them occurred on the religious holidays of those considered to be the target of said attack. How many Islamic attacks have happened through Christmas or New Year's parades, have happened on Jewish holidays, have happened to massacre those celebrating Diwali, for example, on the borders of India? The idea that Islamists would claim that people are attacking them for their religion is truly, truly cute. And of course, Ilhan Omar caring about absolutely everyone but her actual constituents inside the United States is pretty par for the course. Now, this brings us over to Pakistan and Afghanistan. So Pakistan has decided to shove all of its arsenal, which includes a couple of missiles and rockets, cinder blocks, probably an Acme dynamite kit, who knows, maybe some inflatable pool toys, up any possible soft target that it can find with the Islamist regime, the Taliban in Afghanistan, and is essentially pulling the move of pushing a bunch of generals that it's reportedly killing of the Afghani Taliban militias and I suppose at this point organized forces on their social media. So you have to the east of the core Middle East an entirely different war that is going on. The Pakistani legislature has approved an official war with the Afghanistan, again, Taliban. Now we get over to Cuba. President Trump has now floated the idea that maybe the United States will engage in a friendly takeover of the collapsing communist regime in Cuba. Here was that today.
The Cuban government is talking with us. They're in a big deal of trouble, as you know. They have no money, they have no anything right now, but they're talking with us, and maybe we'll have a friendly takeover of Cuba. We could very well end up having a friendly takeover of Cuba.
If you have been around the show ever at all, you know how much I love Teddy Roosevelt. I am honored to have a relative, an ancestor who served with Teddy Roosevelt at San Juan Hill in that campaign. I am thrilled to see it. And also, given that I got a lot of very angry messages today because the Assistant Attorney General of the United States, Harmy Dillon, really thought that my joke about renaming Cuba Marco Cubio was funny. And so all of the communists are really upset. Cuba's falling apart, guys. It's falling apart. And if the communist regime, which is now exceptionally unpopular in Cuba itself, if that anti-American imperialist movement that got it started ends with the United States acquiring, managing, and administrating Cuba, and it once again becoming an American territory, absolutely stellar. And it's going to surge past the productivity of Puerto Rico in about 1.5 weeks. So interesting stuff there. Now the president is floating a lot of this. He also suggested today that he might put Ted Cruz on the Supreme Court as the next nominee. Interesting choice for sure.
State of our Union?
That's not the one I wanted. That's Ayanna Pressley. We'll talk about her a little bit later. But the President Trump, the United States, also here with suggesting Ted Cruz.
I'm thinking about putting him in the Supreme Court. No, I'm thinking because it's very hard. Getting these nominations through is very tough. And he's the only guy I know. He'll get 100% of the Democrat vote, 100% of the Republican vote. They want to get him out of there. He is such a pain in the ass, but he's so good and so talented. Ted Cruz.
Now, speaking of interesting decisions over on the congressional side of things, because there's news to cover over there too, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, who is known for just being really obnoxious. Of course, she is the Democrat representative from the Massachusetts 7th House District. She introduced the Greater Supervision in Banking Act today, which is a wild thing to introduce, which would require the federal government to oversee racial quotas in bank hires in the United States, which is incredibly stupid. The optics heading into 2026, which we'll talk about with Jim Pfaff, the conservative caucus, a little bit later. The decisions that are being made are the farthest from normal, sane behavior. Case in point, Western Lensman over on X sent us this clip from Fox News of Senators Wyden, Hirono, and Kelly. That's Rob Wyden, Mazie Hirono, and then, of course, Mark Kelly, asked point blank, very directly, well, you do focus your efforts for supporting United States citizens over illegal immigrants, right? Like, yeah, I know maybe what Trump, said was kind of easy bait, but I mean, really, maybe you just didn't like what, Trump was saying up there, but you do support citizens, right? And all three chose not to answer.
What is your first responsibility, protecting American citizens or illegal aliens?
I'm just getting ready for hearing. Thank you.
What is your first priority, illegal immigrants or American citizens? You don't want to tell the American people that you prioritize them first?
Now, I do appreciate how at least Rob Wyden is like, I have a meeting. My crock pot is in the oven refrigerator. And he kind of runs off. Again, Wyden always looks strange. The dude looks like someone stretched skin over a mannequin. It's like a prop from the early Doctor Who series, And then you have Mazie Hirono, who always looks smug and smirking because she just truly hates Americans. You talk about representatives or senators that despise people that they disagree with in this country. Mazie Hirono does not get mentioned enough. She laughs.
Illegal aliens or
Now, Mark Kelly starts throwing a fit. He doesn't just look like a baby, he acts like one.
American citizens.
We're not there to perform for this guy. It was a speech filled of a bunch of grievances.
A lot of grievances, all of that celebrating Medal of Honor recipients and national heroes. Again, as our very own producer Daniel showed quite clearly, beautiful graphic right here. The President of the United States spent the most time talking about the successes of the United States and certain policies. He spent very, very little time just digging into Democrats, as was been suggested here. But actually going out and answering questions, not going to happen. You see the same thing from Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, who was asked about the voter rolls and registration and whether or not there were any cases in Michigan of illegal immigrants voting over the last couple of years and what her office was doing to stop it. Again, she repeatedly dodges the question. We're going to talk about why after.
Can you assure Michiganders that there are no longer any non-citizen voters on the voter roll?
We've actually done a lot, frankly, more than any other state to ensure we're driving down or increasing the security of our voter rolls.
So he says, hey, can you tell us there's no non-citizens on the voter rolls in Michigan? And she says, we've done more than anyone else to drive down concerns with voter rolls. That's not what I asked.
And you can go to our website and see everything we've done to ensure the accuracy of our list. And we talked at length about that as well.
So are there any other non-citizen voters on the voter roll?
Well, it's certainly a priority of us to make sure we're consistently working to ensure the accuracy of our rolls. And I'm glad we've been recognized as one of the top states.
Curious, interesting, bizarre, telling. Radio crew, we're going to send you off to the commercial break. Try not to dodge any questions while we're gone. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. We're going to continue on the live stream. Now, my dear live stream friends, and also a couple of our TV crews, I really want you to understand, especially those who may have run for office, you may be in office, it is best to simply answer questions directly or not answer the question at all. Look at the camera, look at the microphone, say, I'm not going to answer it, or B, I don't like how you framed that question, or C, just answer the question directly. That's easier than doing this crap, because what it ends up masking is some really truly terrible policy, and the Democrats are bringing that out in spades. First and foremost, on a telephone town hall, feeling a little sure of himself, Virginia Democrat Representative Don Bayer is planning to introduce legislation to do what? Again, I'm hearing all of this conversation from Democrats about how passionately concerned they are about affordability for Virginians and people in the United States. No worries, folks.
Another idea which came in over the transom over the weekend was that we introduce legislation to name every detention center in America after Donald Trump, the Farmville Donald Trump concentration camp. But we're waiting to see whether we should do that or not. So.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's what Americans were struggling with. You did it. Nothing more petty or nonsensical. We're going to name it the Trump concentration camp, and I'm going to paint swastikas over the whole thing. Stupid. Stupid. Voters are paying attention to this. The polls are starting to slip. Now, Ted Lieu of California, he'll come right out and say the extra stupid thing, of course, whether it's defamatory or not. Here he is, again, pushing against, as all of the Democrats in Congress, except for about 3 or 4, are doing right now regarding the Save America Act.
The administration calls it the Save America Act, which would mandate strict voter ID requirements. That's already passed the House, and the majority leader, John Thune, says he will call it for a Senate vote next week. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Him saying he's going to call it for a Senate vote next week is kind of news to me, because we have a team that's following this reporter to reporter every single update that we can find. So I do get a kick out of that. But also, these strict voter requirements, again, just for fact-checking purposes, are obtaining a piece of document called your birth certificate, and then a kind of ID which has essentially like a cross-check piece of your person that can be a passport. That's it. So what does that leave Democrats in terms of options on that?
I'm not opposed to having photo ID,
but
for elections, I'm opposed to having stupid requirements for photo ID. So under the
But the point of photo ID is that it's supposed to have some requirements. Otherwise, you can just stitch any name next to a photo and go, oh, yeah. I'm Donald Trump. That's me. I am. You can tell by the good looks that I have.
Extreme Save Act, basically your driver's license doesn't count. You have to prove.
Why? Why doesn't your driver's license count? Is it because states from Wisconsin to California allow illegal immigrants to gain driver's licenses?
U.S. citizenship. You know how hard that is for a number of Americans? If you don't have a passport, pretty hard to prove that unless you can somehow find your birth certificate.
Guys, it's not that hard to get a passport. It's not. It's not difficult. It's not a hard thing to do. And the reason that it's a federal option is because, again, states are giving out IDs to individuals that shouldn't have a United States citizen-based ID here in the country. We got to bring the radio crew back from commercial, and then we're going to get into the great vote control conspiracy. You're not going to want to miss it. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
So the Washington Post ran a really bizarre story suggesting that the President of the United States, Donald Trump, has this masterly plan to declare that because China interfered in the 2020 election, that he is going to declare a national emergency and ban voting. And the Washington Post ran this as like a real story. And it has kind of become aluminum foil crack cocaine. No, I'd say that cocaine in this instance is probably too much of a compliment. It's become gas station bathroom meth for the entire like left-wing populist class. So like the socialist class. Every Facebook page that your really annoying relative is on is currently pushing this story. Alyssa Slotkin of Michigan is trying to push this as well. It kind of all started with this idea that Trump is going to send in the National Guard to watch over every ballot cast, which is not true. It's never, there's no plans that have been set up for it. Not even a little bit. Trump's even made fun of the idea. But anyway, Alyssa Slotkin in committee, because every committee is just TV performance.
Do you know of any credible threats of violence against U.S. polling locations that would ever require the National Guard to be deployed? Any actual credible threats, yes or no?
Senator, in this particular forum, I can't speak about any threats that may or may not exist and need to maintain operational security.
The idea that the President of the United States is saying that we should deploy National Guard and potentially others around polling locations when there is no credible threats. You should bring them up here if there are credible threats. We all have clearances, but the idea that...
By the way, you're not allowed to bring up credible threats to individuals with clearances if it's on camera and recorded and broadcast to the country. That's not a thing. So, for example, someone who has enjoyed the wonderful trainings that come with certain kinds of clearances, you're not allowed to go into public and go, "Hey, Phil, Area 51." Like, that's not a thing. You're not allowed to do that. You actually have to do so in environments that are considered secure.
we could be deploying law enforcement and National Guard around a polling location without a credible threat should send a...
She's doing the Karen head bob while she talks. So she's got like the hair that kind of flies forward a little bit to show that she's really passionate about this.
Shiver down your spine, and you are going to be in the hot seat to say, no, I'm sorry. That just fundamentally cuts against who we are as Americans, and I hope you are willing to uphold your oath when it comes down to it.
That's exciting. By the way, his answer is, I'm first of all, I'm not going to share with you allegation threats of international security. Essentially, I'm not going to say, hey, we suspect there is a loophole in this piece of tech that China is exploiting, because maybe the United States is currently trying to reverse engineer the back door or feed them false information. That is something that the CIA is supposed to do and has been documented to have done for quite a long time. The Trump administration, by the way, is doing that right now with individuals who are leaking military and diplomatic secrets to the press. To hilarious results. It's really great watching Reuters and the New York Times get in middle school slap fights over their anonymous sources giving them completely different pieces of information. And the idea that Lott can, just such a silly goofishness. But the Washington Post story. President Trump has previewed a, quote, 17-page draft executive order that claims China interfered in the 2020 elections as a basis to declare a national emergency that would unlock extraordinary presidential power over voting, per the Washington Post. This would allow President Trump to ban mail-in ballots nationwide, framing them as a vector for foreign influence, restrict or ban electronic voting machines, under the notion that they can be compromised by foreign actors, and finally, withhold federal funding and certifications from any states or counties that are found to be operating in non-compliance. Oh, that's exciting. I'm sorry. Like some random populist post from somebody on Facebook that got then sent to the Washington Post as an anonymous tip. Yeah, I'm sorry. No. There's nothing to this at all that has any kind of substance. The president was making fun of it this afternoon, by the way. He was joking about a third term and making fun of this exact story. But alas, you need Jake Tapper and the CNN crew to come in and start, again, gaming this entire thing so hard that even the Washington Post correspondent here that he's asking the question to is like, well, we don't have any proof of anything. I took a lot of Benadryl last night before I went to bed and stuff. And I kind of dreamed up a lot of this. And the counter on the panel, Shermichael Singleton, ends up coming in to kind of wreck things in their path. Here you go.
What kind of powers would this unlock, theoretically, if he does this declaration?
Well, I mean, this isn't like spelled out in a statute or anything, but according to an early version of the draft that I saw, it would just order that everyone's got to re-register.
Re-register.
Everyone's got to re-register. You got to start over with voter registration. 200
million people or whatever.
You've got to show.
I love this. Oh my gosh! People got to register to vote. 200 million people. They got to do things. Oh my God! I can't believe I'm covered in skunk spray, and you want me to shower my whole body? You want me to shower my whole body? Do you know how long that's going to take? Oh my gosh! I can't believe it. Certainly, if I just wash the part of me that the skunk sprayed, I'll totally be fine.
Proof of citizenship, and you can only vote with hand-marked paper ballots, and you can only use an absentee ballot in very limited circumstances.
So again, he's framing this as there's like some big executive order with all of these like really high, and Jake Tapper just looks like he's about to burst. Somebody break out the Atlanta church dress and the smelling salts. Oh, my stars. I mean, my goodness. Even the proposal, which again is not an official proposal, there's not even a real executive order pathway here. The president does not have the authority to declare a national emergency over elections in this country. Trump has never floated that. He's made fun of the idea, in fact. But still, the things that he's described, though, like, yeah, you got to use paper ballots. Oh, no, not paper ballot. How? You mean all of those other countries that do that? How do they? Oh, the horrors, the horror.
Sure, Michael, your response?
I mean, look, there are a lot of people who are going to make claims of having good, strong, robust relationships with the White House and with the president himself. We've seen these types of reportings in the past. And good job by Isaac, by the way. When I first read this story, I couldn't quite believe it. So I reached out to people to just ask, like, hey, is this legitimate? And one response I got was, well, if you find the person who this guy is allegedly talking to, let us know, too. The White House is principally focused on maintaining the House this November. They're principally focused on the economy, bringing jobs back to the American people, not these kooky-monky, crazy stories by some random attorney who is trying to assert something. And it should be known, again, this is not officially from the White House.
Right.
Oh, gee, wow. Some random guy said something. And everyone's running with, breaking news. No. I'm afraid not. It just doesn't carry the weight. Now, Tapper's had a rough week anyway. He tried to box Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy into a little bit of something regarding the policy regarding CDLs, which is what Duffy had been invited on CNN to talk about. Tapper starts badgering him about a bunch of different stuff, about State of the Union rhetoric, and don't you think that Donald Trump isn't very presidential, you know?
He said, quote, these people are crazy. I'm telling you, they're crazy. I mean, but that's not something we ever heard from Obama or Biden from that stage.
Thank you. That's no one else ever said that before. That's exciting stuff. Exciting.
No, I mean, listen, we've never had a speaker rip up a speech either. But when you're saying issues like we're talking about trucking. We have, and it comes in my space, where you have states that are issuing driver's licenses to illegals who haven't been trained to drive a 80,000-pound truck on an American road. We have a little girl that had her life impacted for the rest of her life, and she's 5 years old.
So he immediately starts going into the policy again, a policy that a lot of Americans are concerned about, that is currently impacting people directly, actually focusing on solving the problems. By the way, that's good comms. Immediately slapping back, wait a minute, where were the pearls, Jake, when Nancy Pelosi was ripping up the speech and sucking on her dentures and shaking her head behind the president like a dog with water in its ears? Incredible. And again, as one of the comments pointing out, I do remember Biden in several of his key speeches addressing the country and Congress, calling Republicans the greatest threat to the entire country. So I'm going to pass. I'm going to pass on the faux outrage in this particular instance. Now, this does bring us over to a pretty significant story from the Department of Justice. So according to my colleague over at the Daily Signal, Tyler O'Neill, the Department of Justice has now arrested dozens more. A total of 39 people now face charges in the Anti-Immigration and Customs Enforcement invasion of City's Church in St. Paul, Minnesota last month, according to the superseding indictment that the federal district court unsealed today. Pam Bondi, the attorney general, wrote, "You cannot attack a house of worship. If you do so, you can't hide from us. We'll find you, arrest you, and prosecute you." She announced earlier today that federal agents have already arrested 25 of the 30 new defendants in the indictment. Radio crew, we're going to send you guys off to the commercial break. Catch you in a second. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Now, right before we get to kind of some of the reaction from this, of the individuals who have been arrested, 19 have been granted conditional release today. You can see them here kind of walking out in front of the crowd and cheering rally stuff. Their fists in the air. Oh, I'm so brave. I stormed a church. Correct, protesting is not a crime. Blocking parents from going to collect their children from Sunday school, that's a crime. Disrupting a church service in the United States, that's a crime. Guys, this isn't difficult. There are these entire cool folders full of documents where you can read what's called precedent, where courts have ruled on these things in the past. You can go and read the laws. Now, I know they're really boring because Congress kind of sucks at writing, but again, I would say, kind of useful in this particular instance. So we're going to get to the kind of the reaction from Jim Pfaff over at the conservative caucus on that side. I do want to touch on two other stories before we get there, though. There was a little bit of outrage on the left side of the aisle as well, because CNN's future is rather uncertain now, at least they say, because since Netflix is no longer able to buy Warner Brothers, and it looks as though Skydance and Paramount are going to swoop in and grab it, then this means that Larry Ellis might control CNN, and it's going to be terrible. They're going to force Jake Tapper to read only from Truth Social. It's going to be the end of the network. Oh, the horror media is dying in darkness and whatever. I will remind you that the publications, the outlets, including over on the left, that have subscription-based models like CNN Plus, for instance, went out of business and shut down or are laying off hundreds of staffers because no one is supporting their publication. Here at the Daily Signal, look, we don't even ask you to, fund the show directly right here. Now, the Daily Signal is supported by a lot of people who do donate to what we're doing, and we are incredibly grateful for those that do. And by the way, even this evening, even though I have asked you guys, said you guys don't have to do this, we have some very kind super chats that we'll kind of get to over in the mail time. Really kind $10 super chat from Betsy Merrill, from Kevin Stankiewicz, $5 super chat, a couple of membership joins. You guys don't have to do that, but that should be at least a little bit of evidence, although I don't try to put all of worth into that, at least in this instance, because we're not soliciting them, that people support the show. No one's giving money to the Washington Post. No one's giving money to CNN. The New York Times is making all of its money off of Wordle and Wordle ads. So therefore, what's the driving narrative to actually keep outlets like CNN operating as they are? And so far, by the way, CBS has thrown all of the complaints in the world, at least staffers there, that now they are being told to cover things objectively. Seriously. This has caused Mary Walsh, a veteran CBS News producer, to resign. She says, honestly, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to report things apolitically. Yeah, we know. We're going to swing back to the radio crew, pick up the fine folks one more time, and then we're going to get into some of the reaction. It's pretty great. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
All right, to talk about this Department of Justice 30 arrests, or at least I should say 24 and 6 to go, as Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon said regarding the city's church arrests in Minneapolis. Jim Pfaff, president of the Conservative Caucus. Boy, it seems that storming that church was not the right move, Jim.
Who'd have thought, right? Oh my gosh. Listen, the reason that they did that is because Democrats over the last 10 years at least, if not a little bit longer, have felt that they have a free hand to do whatever they want,
right,
to intimidate and force people to comply to their will. They did it through the Biden administration, through censorship, massive censorship effort. They were intimidating people in the courts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They think that they have a right to intimidate people. Frankly, and I hate to use this word because it can be overused, but these are the same fascist methods that were used by Mussolini to get in power in Italy. He had his black shirts. He intimidated people and businesses who wouldn't comply. And he eventually was able to intimidate Emmanuel III to pass along power to him as the ruler of Italy. Now, I'm not saying that Democrats want to go precisely where Mussolini did, but they want a lot of that sort of intimidating power through the government. But they're going to do it with them being out of power right now. They're going to do it by these means. It is absurd. It's a violation of the First Amendment and Harmeet Dillon's right to prosecute.
Now, on the flip side, we have the warnings. So while also doing all of the intimidation, they're also going to do the "we're fleeing from persecution" bit. LGBTQ plus 2IA, whatever, the groups of interestingly colored hair individuals, they are now saying that transgender and LGBTQ people need to, and I quote, flee Kansas, end quote, for their safety, as the state implements essentially a law that says, you're not allowed to have special gender driver licenses. You got to have sex on it like everyone else, male or female. Sorry there, sailor. And apparently it's time to flee for the hills, says the trans group. What do you think?
It's absurd. First of all, to demand these sorts of things is unique in human history. Now, a lot of times this transgender movement will say, oh, there were transgender people. Nero was a transgender. Emperor Nero was, or whatever. I mean, they bring up these instances. Yeah, I know. They bring up these instances. No, I'm not kidding. I have heard this very
Are you
argument.
telling me the Little Caesars is trans?
Yes. So the funny thing about all this is that they're going to bring up these instances where someone acted like a transgender person throughout history and said this is normal, and you gotta treat us like normal. Listen, we as Americans do treat them normally before the law. We've been doing that forever. Their problem is they haven't been accepted culturally, and they want to demand cultural compliance, and we're not going to give it. There's no need to give it in any shape or fashion. Certainly not through the legal means of a driver's license or whatever else that they want this to be.
Oh my goodness. Jim Pfaff, I dearly wish that we had a lot more time together. Appreciate your takes over at the Conservative Caucus. I knew I had to get those two stories in front of you. We have a lot of stuff that we could hit. The State of the Union, I wish, but just kind of as a closing thought here from your perspective, do you see Democrats abandoning some of the storm in the church practices or the freaking out about LGB whatever stuff heading into the 2026 year, or are we going to see the same level, or is it going to ramp up?
Oh, I think it'll ramp up. It's likely to ramp up. I don't predict that precisely, but the reality is that the only way that they can win anything is to twist the rules, to impose a relativistic view of truth and non-truth, and not recognize things are either true or not true, but also intimidation. Listen, that's the only tactic that they've had that has ever had any success since they began in Barack Obama's administration to try to force America into a certain construct that they want to bring about. So, yeah, I think it is likely. I mean, they're going to feel they had some success at it last year. They certainly feel like they got, ICE kicked out of Minnesota. That's the narrative that they have when all it was Tom Homan just got it focused and directed in the way it needed to be. They feel like they've had these wins, and in some cases they were given these wins through inaction. They're very likely to try it again, particularly if it looks like that they're not going to keep the House, which, by the way, Democrats are odds on in the polls right now to take the House. But if that starts to change, which I think it very likely will at crunch time, watch out, because it could get really, really bad.
Again, Jim Pfaff, president of the Conservative Caucus. Always good to have you on. The Pfaff man himself. Appreciate you, buddy.
Thanks, Tony.
All right, before we send the radio crew off to their sweet goodbye this evening, I do want to point out one thing that is truly, truly excellent. So right now, there is an individual, I should say the group Greenpeace, that filed a major lawsuit against one particular pipeline. That would be the Dakota Access Oil Pipeline. A judge has now finalized a $345 million verdict against Greenpeace. Why? Because they're environmental, not protesters, not activists, terrorists. Attempted to violently block the Dakota Access Oil Pipeline, tried to vandalize, attempted to attack and assault individuals who were installing parts of the Dakota Access Oil Pipeline. Greenpeace has now released a statement saying that they are likely going to be forced into bankruptcy. I love it. That's good news. I'm telling you, for all of the things that in the news this week might have given you a bit of a frown, may I suggest that watching leftist organizations, especially those, whether they be Students for Justice in Palestine losing a bunch of money, whether it's the Washington Post losing a bunch of money, whether it's, of course, Greenpeace losing a bunch of money, whether it's the DNC, which is in such severe debt at this point, that is struggling to afford the advertisements to raise money. Do you know how broke you have to be as an organization not to be able to afford the ads to raise the donations? The DNC is now relying on posts from celebrities almost exclusively to endorse key Democrat-supported candidates in primary races against people who may be running as a Democrat that they don't support, for example. Incredible. You got to rely on Cardi B to run out there and campaign for you? That's not good. That's not, I would say that is not funky nor fresh for those on the left. Over here on the right, though, I'll drink to that. Radio crew, hope you guys have a wonderful weekend and take excellent care. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. We're going to continue on the live stream. Now, to continue on the live stream to something that I am truly, truly looking forward to chatting with y'all. So, first and foremost, on this transgender bill in Kansas. So, the Kansas state legislature implemented a law which simply says, hey, if you refuse to renew your driver's license that says, I have a penis, I have a vagina, it's the one I was born with. If you refuse to do that, then your driver's license will be invalid. Just as though you claimed to be Barney the dinosaur on your license. No, not valid, not a thing that is allowed. The groups that are suggesting it is now time to flee the state are trying to file refugee status for some of their members in other countries. Guys, that's insane. That is insane. Several of these advocacy groups have filed refugee applications to Ireland, to Spain, and this is one that I personally enjoy, to China. Bro. Okay. I'm all right. All right. On another horrible and trans news. The first openly trans U.S. lawmaker, Stacey Marie Lofton, has now admitted to horrific child sex charges involving children as young as 3 years old. This individual faces up to 30 years in prison. So, I want to make it clear, I don't care if they're on the left, I don't care if they're on the right, I don't care if they're straight, I don't care if they're trans, I don't care if they're gay, I don't care. Any individual that is accused and convicted of a sex crime with a minor should be hanged by the neck until dead in the public square. Now, that aside, moving from there, I want to talk very, very briefly about the Bill Clinton appearance before the committee today, and then the letter that he released. So it's no secret that in our coverage of the Hillary Clinton and the Bill Clinton depositions, those subpoenas before Congressional committee, I really wasn't impressed. The reason that I wasn't impressed with calling them before the committee is that I knew and you knew that nothing was actually going to get done. They were going to ask them a lot of really silly, stupid questions and miss an amazing, amazing opportunity. Allow me to explain what I mean. When we went after Sean Diddy Combs, P. Diddy, the United States, instead of charging him with what we knew we could get him on, he did these things, he allegedly assaulted these people, that kind of stuff, right? Instead of going after him on those charges, instead, the attorney got this brilliant idea. The prosecutor said, hey, we're going to charge him with RICO, the racketeering statutes, in which you have to prove that Sean Diddy not only committed a bunch of awful crimes, but set up a little Shopify Amazon situation and then trafficked a bunch of minors as well. And it turns out they couldn't prove it. And so instead of getting Sean Diddy Combs on 20 to 30 years of gross sexual and abuse, assault and battery charges himself, Instead, the dude's walking away with like maybe 7 years, probably like maybe 2 years, which is a disgrace. Here with the Clintons, we are facing the same thing. Guys, all of the prosecutions around the world right now, here, 2026, February 27th, all of those prosecutions involve individuals who, according to the documents which have been released by the Department of Justice, either provided funds to or likely leaked state secrets of various countries to Jeffrey Epstein in exchange for things that we are not quite sure because those trials are not concluded. Now, it is most likely, given how we see things set up, that Epstein, for example, on behalf of a couple individuals, exchanged money in order for certain influence that he exerted on other individuals to help the influence of some of those people. That's one of the things, for example, that Prince Andrew is under serious trouble for. Now, of course, there's a lot of sexual stuff involved with those things as well, but the charges, currently the indictments around the world, are involved in the corruption scandal regarding Epstein. Now, why does that matter? That matters because instead of bringing the Clintons, which have, survey says, the Clinton Foundation, which Epstein not only put a lot of money into, not only likely served in some kind of an advisory capacity to, but also visited the wedding of Chelsea Clinton, likely in regards and connections to that philanthropy network in that situation. Now, here's what's really frustrating. Guys, Bill Clinton, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, same thing. Same thing. And don't get me wrong, would I love to see Bill Gates hauled before the courts and called out onto the record on a bunch of things, and all of the evidence is right there regarding sexual abuse, and then we got him, and the FBI kicks in the door, and then again, convicted of sexual crimes, hanged by the neck until dead. That's not what's going to happen. There's not enough evidence for that. Everyone has beat the bush high and low everywhere for the last 10 years. The evidence is there to go after Bill and Hillary Clinton regarding the Clinton Foundation and its business ties to Jeffrey Epstein. But the House Oversight Committee didn't focus on that. The House Oversight Committee strolled in, asked Hillary Clinton a bunch of questions about Pizzagate and other random crap that had very little, if anything at all, to do with Jeffrey Epstein. And spent a bunch of time going, did you know Jeffrey Epstein? No. Did you know Jeffrey Epstein? No. Did you know Jeffrey Epstein? No. Like, oh yeah, we got her, guys. Nice committee work. Well done. With Bill Clinton today, a lot of the same questions. And I know this is going to shock you. A lot of answers were, I don't recall, and I never had sex in front of that person. Is that all right with everybody? I mean, again, just making it quite clear that no way was Bill Clinton going to go in front of Congress and go, yes, I did it. I did all of these things. Now, the House Oversight Committee, again, I have all of the respect in the world for James Comer. I think he's been dealt a very rough hand of cards here. He suggests that they might actually go through and say, well, you're in a photo with him. We got you. Again, we didn't ask financial questions, though. Financial questions here could have been really useful because Americans have had concerns and evidence over the last 15 years about really sketchy stuff regarding the Clinton Foundation. For example, there is documented evidence that shows Jeffrey Epstein peddled influence on behalf of the Russian oligarchs and directly for the Russian Federation. We have those emails, not random tips from a Speedway gas station, but actual genuine evidence suggesting this. Meaning that, did Jeffrey Epstein play some kind of a part in negotiating influence on behalf of Hillary Clinton in hiding her Quaaludes use and her manic bipolar disorder? Those are real questions. Did Jeffrey Epstein have to do with the Burisma situation and the manipulation of the Ukrainian and the Russian stock markets? Man, those are interesting questions that we have actual spreadsheets that point to. God forbid we talk about those. But Bill Clinton, never willing to just let it die, decided to get out in front of the media and post an official letter. Every lawyer, just every time some of these people speak, it hurts. So he gets out there and just sets himself up for ultimate failure. Because you remember, Bill Clinton is painted in the dress in the painting in Epstein's apartment. There are some real questions regarding Bill. And instead of, again, just kind of letting it go and saying, well, really, it's Trump, or just saying, I don't recall, he backs himself into a corner. He says, as someone who grew up in a home with domestic abuse, not only would I not have flown on his plane if I had any inkling of what he was doing, I would have turned him in myself and led call for justice for his crimes, not sweetheart deals. Okay, sure, Jan. I'm going to level with you. Pulling out the I was abused card? Nope. The young lady who had initially flirted with Jeffrey Epstein that then trafficked for Jeffrey Epstein? Yeah, sorry, she's guilty of some of those particular crimes. I don't care if Ro Khanna invites her to the State of the Union. How about no? And regarding Clinton, essentially, he suggests that, he never actually knew him. He didn't see anything. He didn't know anything. Essentially, he posted the three monkeys with the, hear no, see no, speak no evil. And when you get out there and you go overboard, instead of going, yeah, I knew him for a while, then I didn't like him so much, and I turned him in. I said, hey, also you should look into Ghislaine Maxwell. She's kind of a pimp for Epstein, which is what Trump did. Instead of doing that, Bill Clinton said, I didn't know anything. I don't know nothing. Okay, well, now we have a lot of photos that show that's not the case. If you're accused of something in political life, and I have given this advice to Republicans, to Democrats, to state administrations, guys, if you're accused of something, you should probably read what you're accused of and probably see what photos are there of you that you were accused of before you deny that they exist. Just a hot tip. Again, same with mortgage fraud, guys. You're going to commit fraud. Don't commit the kind of fraud you have to sign in triplicate. Don't do it. Don't be dumb. Don't be dumb. It's a really great life policy here. And now I think that Bill Clinton is going to have to go back and do some stuff because he caused himself a couple of boo-boos in this particular letter. Unfortunately, the real golden goose here, Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation, less so. Because instead we decided to get out there and yell at Hillary. Which, again, don't get me wrong, I'd like to yell at Hillary. But also, you've been elected to office and you could have at least started solving the Clinton Foundation issue. Oh, well. There's always your next C-SPAN TV appearance. Now, meanwhile, the Trump administration has gone forward with what's likely to be a full ban on Anthropic in the United States government. So Anthropic AI, which runs Claude, which, by the way, I quite like Claude. I think it's a very competent AI model. It does some pretty cool stuff. The Department of War was using it to do cool things. For example, like gaming different ways to run the numbers on the Maduro raid. And this really upset Claude because they let the Department of War use it, but they really didn't like the idea that the Department of War would then use that technology that they were given access to. And so Claude then came in with Anthropic and said, we're going to shut a bunch of doors to you and not let you see essentially the code, the back server information. That's a major security threat to the United States. We've played that game before. It's one of the United States' operational tools against China and Iran. Well, you didn't think I was tying all this together tonight, did you? Well, just you wait. So the Secretary of War announced, hey, if Anthropic is going to throw itself a pity party and pretend that it's the scene in Batman where Morgan Freeman says, no, Batman, we can't just go and use everyone's phones to look at stuff, whatever. You remember that scene, like, oh, mass surveillance, oh, the horrors, the terror, whatever. He's like, we've got to do it. Swear to me. And he essentially said, no, I'm going to shut, I'm going to walk, I'm going to quit. Mr. Fox, that whole Batman scene. This is Anthropic's argument. You're going to use the AI for mass surveillance and a terror state. Oh, we can't do it. Oh, it's terrible. We're not going to do it. So the Secretary of War said, okay, fine, then we'll go with another vendor. If you're going to gatekeep stuff from us that you say has some type of super mass war situation, whatever, then okay, we'll go to a different supplier. The idea that this game wasn't always on the table is really silly. In the defense contracting world, that's always made me raise an eyebrow. Self-entitlement is hilarious in these kind of instances. But Trump also got out there and made a Truth Social post and said, the United States of America will never allow a radical left woke company to dictate our great military fights and wins wars. That decision belongs to your commander-in-chief and the tremendous leaders I appoint to run our military. And he's correct, by the way. If you have a contract with the federal government and you say, hey, yeah, we'll design this for you, and then you design it and you go, oh, no, it's too powerful. It's too powerful. I can't let you have it. No, well, then you don't get the money. It's payment upon delivery. Not give you money because that was how Biden did things. Oh, sure, money. That's not how the Trump administration operates, nor should they. Payment upon delivery is a good thing. And what did you think the Department of War was going to do with Anthropic? When Pete Hegseth gets up there and he goes, we're going to make the military lethal in every single part. What did you think that meant? Vibes? Essays? Papers? To quote the pro-Palestinian activist about the Intifada. So just really bizarre behavior from a lot of people around the country today who seem to believe that they can all play by their own rules, their own games. Now, on another note here, Google's AI systems here, major bounce in value for it today at the close of the trading day. There are so many political analysts who are upset about Anthropic and other AI ups and downs. It's an emerging technology that has some use. We are starting to see kind of some of the floor with it. But at least right now, here in this particular moment, it's so bizarre to watch organizations like CNN, The Washington Post, some of the reporters over at CBS, Anthropic, and other AI administrations say, I'm going to take your money and then I'm going to do whatever I want, even if it is directly against your interests. I don't think that's going to play very well in the long term. All right, we're going to do just a bit of mail time here in a minute, and then we're going to cut over to a great interview with our friends over at Hillsdale, because Hillsdale doing some excellent stuff with the legacy of my friend Charlie Kirk. Beautiful coursework over there that Charlie used to take. Now, I will say I'm a bit of a fanboy in the interview because I really like, as someone who didn't go to Hillsdale, I'm really a fan of providing these courses to people. After all, I'm one of the people that tell you consistently, you kind of need to keep reading things. Don't just regurgitate things on social media. I think that's some pretty good stuff. Otherwise, you'll end up like a certain influencer who said that she didn't know thunder came from lightning. So you don't want to end up like that person. So you should definitely take some free Hillsdale online courses. Again, it's free. They're not paying us to say that. That's just me saying that. Before we get to that, though, I want to do a little bit of mail time. So a very kind couple of super chats, as I had mentioned earlier. One is from Kevin Stankiewicz. He said, will our NATO ally, Turkey, his air quotes, the second largest military in NATO, well, yeah, but it's kind of a crappy military. Anyway, help the U.S. win the war in Iran, or are they another useless freeloading ally? Oh, Turkey is absolutely a freeloading ally. So I have been to Turkey. I have been to Incirlik, the U.S. base there. I have had some very interesting conversations with Turkey diplomats. Turkey's an interesting country. Some really nice people that I met there. A friend for life, in fact, that I made there. Really amazing guy. A lot of excellent debates over the Quran and the Bible, for instance, with that particular individual. Turkey, however, as a government, sucks. Its ruler is a foolish dictator who has way too many Iranian sympathies. And I think that he'll just sit there. I don't think he's stupid enough to leak anything to Iran, mainly because the United States intelligence has essentially tapped every communication going in or out of Turkey for the last 25 years. That's kind of an open secret. They're a freeloading ally. They don't do very much. They were really nice against Russia because Turkey was where we put the missiles that we then pulled some back from at the end of the Cuban Missile Crisis. So the Russians took their missiles out of Cuba. We took some of our missiles out of Turkey. They've been really useless since then. Really good coffee, but that's kind of about it. I don't really care for the Turkish coffee, though, that leaves the grounds at the bottom, though. That's disgusting. All right, from Betsy Merrill 923, a very kind $10 super chat says, Tony, can I adopt you? Yes, but you have to adopt the rest of the team too. Producer Daniel, he's kind of high maintenance. And adopting producer Lou is just a nightmare. Man bowls all the time. It's exhausting. At 3 a.m, you hear pins racketing everywhere. Terrible. Producer Jen's pretty good. I don't think she's too harsh on the whole, being adopted thing. Producer Allison's, honestly, it's kind of a luck of the draw thing. But yeah, adopting us, it's a high bill. You might want to think about that twice before you carry that out. One other question that I did want to tackle today. Did you see? You said, so I'm a Baptist. I'm proudly an independent fundamental Baptist. And there was an amicus brief filed on behalf of a bunch of Catholic bishops and priests and whatever, essentially suing the Trump administration before the Supreme Court an amicus brief filed against the Trump administration, I should say more accurately, suggesting, hey, the Catholic Church says you can't get rid of birthright citizenship in the United States. And it is a Baptist, technically, that filed the lawsuit on behalf of the Catholics. So first of all, I will say this. The man who filed that lawsuit is about as much a Baptist as ham is kosher. So no, that lawyer is also the same one who caused a major rift in the Southern Baptist Convention by suggesting that gay marriage is totally biblical. It's not. And that women pastors are great. And again, in the Baptist church, no, it's not a theological thing that a lot of us adhere to. So no, the guy's not a Baptist. But also on that measure, one of my biggest disagreements with the Catholic Church, and I say this as one of the most pro-Catholic Baptists out there. I love my Catholic brothers in Christ. I'll level with you. My biggest criticism of the Catholic Church is how the Pope decides every couple of years a bunch of really garbage policies that he'll cite based off of church history and not scripture or anything substantive. And then Catholics all say, well, no, actually the Holy Father meant this other stuff. And again, I dislike that. I think that's a disservice to Catholics. As our Catholic producer points out, producer Josiah, again, who's probably far better at answering some of these things, he says there's nothing in the catechism on birthright citizenship. Very correct. So again, asking me about stuff, I can say on the Baptist side of things, dude's a sucky Baptist, awful, garbage. How about no? And then, from the Catholics, a lot of discomfiture at that too. So beware of those who call themselves super fancy ministers and theological experts via titles, and then proceed to know absolutely nothing at all about the faith. There's some goofy influencer over on X who wears pink, Carrie Prejean Baller, who's the exact same. Like, I'm a Catholic, and she knows nothing about theology at all. Embarrassing. So don't be like that. Don't do that kind of stuff. Instead, come to church and learn from Scripture. And if you're Catholic, go to a traditional mass. Go traditional. It's good stuff. If you're going to go to a Baptist church, go to an indie fundy church. Sing a good hymn. I promise you can sing all 852 verses of Good, Good Father later. All right. That aside, let's go ahead and move over to a couple of interesting things that we're going to get to a little bit later here. But Hillsdale first. Don't go anywhere. Tony Kinnett cast here on the Daily Signal. So as a few of you guys know, I'm not one of our many colleagues at the Daily Signal who graduated from Hillsdale, but we think really, really fondly of them. And that's not quite difficult. And having on from Hillsdale, as we've had in the last couple of weeks, a couple of their great crew, Dr. Jeremiah Regan, he's the executive director of their online learning program. A lot of great stuff going on over there. Dr. Regan, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
So let's dive right in. I know about the Learn Like Charlie campaign, but a lot of our audience doesn't yet. So give us a bit of a breakdown here.
Sure. Hillsdale College offers 52 free, not-for-credit online courses, and Charlie was a great friend and a great student of Hillsdale College in our free courses. They are pure education. Charlie was proud of talking about not going to college and how unnecessary college can be, and to a large extent, we agree with that. Learning is not about a credential. It's about the wisdom you can acquire, the happiness you can pursue, and the good that you can do for yourself and your community. Our courses help make that possible, and we're pleased to roll out our Learn Like Charlie paths, which allow anyone in America to learn what Charlie learned from Hillsdale College.
And this is something that I particularly like because, and I can say this naturally, not as a sponsored partner, but someone who really does believe in these particular programs. When you get into the political broadcasting space, or really just as an adult in general, you get into conversations, you realize pretty quickly that you kind of run out of stuff that you learned growing up to talk about pretty quickly on. So you got to fill the tank with something. Now, there are some influencers out there who just regurgitate what they see on social media, but Charlie was not one of those. And I do remember a little bit here and there, admittedly, a couple of things that Charlie sent me that he did get from these particular programs. And I got to say, I know the Constitution classes from Hillsdale are excellent. Tell us about some of the other really content-rich free courses in these programs and what it is that they seek to educate people on.
Absolutely. Human life is complicated. There are a lot of things to learn. And even if you've learned some of these things before, as you acquire life experience, it can be useful to go back and revisit these ideas. So you mentioned the Constitution course. That's our single most popular course. It's an overview of our political system from the founding through present day. Charlie took that course, completed it, and it's featured in all of the Learn Like Charlie paths. Another great course is our Genesis course. Same kind of idea, begin at the beginning. Constitution's our political beginning. Genesis is our beginning as a human race. That's taught by Dr. Justin Jackson, an English professor. And it's a fascinating course because he teaches us how to read the scriptures more deeply and get more of God's message out of them.
To be fair, it also helps that Dr. Jackson is one of those lecturers who, when they start talking, the room drops to a pin needle whisper.
That's right. He is very learned. He is very charismatic and very dramatic. He is an excellent video presenter.
He puts the BBC documentarians to shame. I'm just going to level with you there. I have listened to a few of his lectures before. Those things said, the reason that I wanted to do this particular interview is I am obsessed with the hunger that people have for purpose, the hunger that people have for knowledge. And there's, sorry to use an example, a cultural example that is so lowbrow for this kind of thing, but there's an episode of Friends, I'm sorry, in which Phoebe,
that's real. That's real culture. That's the world we live in. That stuff matters.
So Phoebe Buffay, who's a vegetarian, while she is pregnant in one series, she's like, you know what? I really need some meat. I put it off. And Joey Tribbiani, the Italian, says, no. If you're going to eat meat, do it right. And he sets out like the premium Italian cuts and like a steak, like a good steak. Like if you're going to, break it, you're going to go have a little bit of meat. Don't just get a cheap lunch meat sandwich. You do it right. These courses, you're going to go out there and dive into some knowledge. Guys, go for the good cut of beef. These programs actually have genuine, real content that is sourced from the good old books, the kind that creak when you open them because of the age and the individuals that have leafed through them over the last 50, 100, 200, 300 years. This is the kind of content you should be consuming. What's the kind of reception that you guys have had to these programs? Other than me, who is over here bubbling like a middle school student.
We have the pleasure of receiving emails and letters and other forms of communication from our students all over the world, mostly in America, but they are all over the world. And they tell us these are things that they wanted to learn, didn't learn them in high school or in college, or maybe they did and it's been a long time and they again want to revisit those ideas. They help them better understand the world and enjoy God's creation and culture in a richer way. I'll give you one quick story. We came out with a course on Paradise Lost, John Milton's epic poem. It's a doozy. That is a long, difficult poem, but it's really beautiful. The course professor, Stephen Smith, guides us through that. And he does a great job. It's a beautiful course. We put a lot of effort into shooting it beautifully so it looks nice too. And we received multiple letters from people who said, I've meant to read this poem my whole life. I've been putting it off 20, 30 years. I started it and never finished it. I watched your course and now I've read the poem and I feel like I better understand my relationship with God and my relationship with other men. We get letters like that all the time, and that's really gratifying.
There's a desperate hunger, not just among the youth. Young men are often talked about in kind of our circles as the people most questing after truth. They go looking for once they find the purpose. It's the completely new man, completely new life. But when I look at society today, I see all different peoples of all ages, all walks of life, who are seeking after these kinds of truths. And you would be shocked how many people are touched by Paradise Lost, for instance, or yes, even an essay or two from Milton. You too can get something out of it. And especially when you have really great professors and a phenomenal education team that isn't going to give you the drivel that I got in my education master's degrees at Ball State. You're going to get real quality stuff. And again, Learn Like Charlie program over at the Hillsdale online free courses. I can't praise it enough. I'm sorry. I know this isn't as useful, or maybe it was an interview for you because I'm not hitting you with a bunch of hard questions, but I'm really thankful for what you guys are doing.
Well, thank you. One of the joys of getting to work in this way is taking a professor who has dedicated decades of their lives to studying these important and beautiful works, and who are used to talking in great depth with students in a classroom. Being able to share that with a broad audience, to invite our friends in to learn with us, to enrich their lives. And it's fun for me because I have not had the occasion to study Paradise Lost in depth, but filming the course, I sure did. I got a really good tutorial from Steve Smith, and there's many instances of that. The finished product of the course is designed to be accessible, and anyone who visits learnlikecharlie.com will see there are 3 paths. The first, the Charlie Kirk path, are the 16 courses that Charlie took and completed 100%, watched all the videos, took and passed all the quizzes, passed the final exam. He started many others and was robbed of the opportunity to finish them, but we present 2 other courses on topics he thought were very important: A Citizen's Education and Faith First. And those are selections of courses that Charlie either took or spent a lot of his public effort talking about the themes and emphasizing their importance.
I cannot stress enough how important these courses are. Online.hillsdale.edu and then radio-Charlie Kirk, I believe. You had a different link that you'd shared to get us there as well.
There's a couple ways to get there. If you're interested in following the Charlie paths, learnlikecharlie.com. That will take you to the landing page for all of the Charlie courses, but the link you mentioned, online.hillsdale.edu, that will also take anyone into our entire library of 52 free, not-for-credit courses.
Awesome. We'll, of course, link those in the description. Dr. Jeremiah Regan, can't thank you enough for a little bit of your time here, and look forward to having some of your Hillsdale crew on in the future.
Thank you very much.
All right. Again, I know that maybe me, kind of going over some Hillsdale stuff, maybe not the most riveting, wow, incredible. I love it. I just really enjoy the stuff that they're doing. And I'll level with you. We don't always do these kind of interviews where we kind of go over those particular things. But if you're itching to learn a couple of things like that, that give you some constitutional understanding, like obviously that Charlie enjoyed his masterful understanding of the U.S. Constitution, I would recommend that you start there. Again, we've got that link down in the description. Also, before we go for the evening, I am going to talk about something that is kind of a sponsored kind of thing. And I'm going to level with you. We absolutely love the crew who makes Pre-Sleep. Presleep.co. They have essentially a kind of powder. I am up late. I'm up late a lot, and that means that up until the umpteenth hours of the morning dealing with news breaking, that kind of things, I'm either going to resort to melatonin or to Benadryl before I go to sleep. And that's not a very good idea. And in fact, it doesn't always work. Melatonin kind of leaves me with a rough window of sleep where I'm like, I'm kind of going to fall asleep. And then if I don't fall asleep right then, it doesn't work, and then it sucks. So guy reached out to me not too long ago and shared a post with me over from X, very transparently. I think you can actually see me interact with this over on X, so I'm not just reading a script or something, about Pre-Sleep. It comes in 2 flavors, pink lemonade, blue raspberry. And I'm not much of a powders guy, like a protein or workout supplements kind of dude. Never really been my thing. But I did try this. They sent me a sample. And the kind of question at the time was, if you mix it with a little Sprite Zero, would it also keep you from getting up to pee during the night? Which a lot of my dudes understand that's not always particularly the most enjoyable part of losing a comfortable night's sleep. And when I remember to take it, it's pretty good stuff. That's the endorsement. Now look, in the description, there's a link, presleep.co. If you use code TONY10, TONY10, you get 10% off your order. That's it. That's something that the owner of the company did nice for me. I would still recommend it to you were there no code at all. I really like the stuff. I actually got a couple of cases of the stuff before he ran out of pink lemonade for a while. That's the more popular flavor, just in case you're going to go for this or the blue raspberry. All right. I don't do a ton of ads. I don't. I like to try to keep the experience on here kind of as clean as possible. This is a product that I recommend because I like it. And if you're up late hours of the night, you're some kind of a political junkie, whatever, you're going to stay up late anyway. You're going to drink a lot of coffee, way too much Cafe Bustelo. I hear you. I recommend this. It's good. It's kind of a more natural product. I'm not going to say anything other than that. I recommend it. There you go. Something I do not recommend for the end of this week. Okay. I would say it's a local issue, but it's really not on the business side of things. Walmart pickup order sucks. It is awful. If you use Walmart pickup, you likely know what I'm talking about. In which you will order something on the app. They will tell you to then go to a certain spot. Maybe you get a couple of groceries, whatever. And then you sit at the Walmart Supercenter parking lot. Recent wait times, and I've confirmed this at a couple of other locations, just in my local location. People are sitting for between 40 minutes to an hour and 45 minutes waiting for the employee, which says that their order is ready, to bring them out to their car. That's awful. That is garbage. And usually, I haven't really done this segment on the show for a very long time. But if I do praise a business, I also try ripping a business as well that really bothers me. Walmart's pickup order stuff is awful. It is garbage. It's terrible. Just go in and buy the stuff. They don't even bring you the right stuff anyway. There you go. That's the business that I slam at the present time. So there you go. Something I really like, something I really don't like. Or I guess as Ben Shapiro would put it, here are the things I like and the things I hate, folks. So those things all said, I want you guys to have a wonderful weekend. If the strike on Iran begins, we will be here. We're going to hop live right away with all of the information that we can, and we'll bring it to you as quick as we can. We were the first network broadcast to report it last time, so subscribe. Hit the bell, I suppose. The bell on the subscription thing that says, hey, I want to be alerted if Tony goes live right away at 3 a.m. when I'm trying to sleep after taking a little bit of pre-sleep. So that all said, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Appreciate each and every one of you. Take care. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC.
I'm Matt Davis, CEO here at Maranatha Baptist University, and I'd like to invite you personally to Maranatha's 4th annual Leader to Leader Conference on March 5th and 6th here in Watertown, Wisconsin. This event, sponsored by our School of Business, offers 2 days of practical insights, valuable connections, and leadership development that will impact your career no matter your field. This year's conference includes keynotes from Ken Barbick, a Maranatha graduate and former Senate-confirmed Assistant Secretary of Agriculture, and currently serving as a senior lobbyist and advisor to Fortune 500 companies. My friend Tony Kinnett, another Maranatha grad who now serves as a national correspondent and syndicated radio host for the Daily Signal. And Adam Morgan, president of Majesty Music and a former member of South Carolina's legislature. Becoming a more intentional, effective leader starts here. Take the next step in your leadership journey and join us March 5th and 6th for 2 days of learning, networking, and growth that will set the tone for the rest of your year. To learn more, visit mbu.edu/leader-to-leader. Can't wait to see you here on Maranatha's beautiful campus, March 5th and 6th for the 4th annual Leader to Leader Conference.